1122 to connect. 8300. Major. 8362, 28 Smith vehicle. 900,
Awful lot of smoke from one of the towers. Whatever has occurred has just occurred within minutes, and we are trying to determine exactly what that is.
Flames are shooting out. Smoke is pouring out.
There are fire crews just screaming into this area from every conceivable direction.
I was walking through the hallway in my sophomore year of high school, and another student told me. I didn't even know what the Twin Towers were, but once I found out and I saw the pictures on the TV and everything, I was very scared. The teachers were trying to calm everyone else down, but the students were just as worried as I was.
I was driving to work here at St. Joseph's College, driving to an early morning Western Civ class, and I heard reports over the radio as I was driving to work, a report about some fire in a high-rise down in the Wall Street area in New York, and I am from near that area. So I was very interested, and then as the reports began to come in, and it was plane hitting one of the World Trade Center towers, I thought this is very unusual. And then, of course, right before I drove into the college, I heard about the second plane. I remember one of the first things I thought was how many people on campus know about this already. And I went to my class, and my first thought was to get the TV on in the Western Civ class and to discuss it in class. Everybody was pretty much in control of themselves, but everybody was horrified, and you got this sense of repressed horror. That was the general reaction. But outwardly, everyone seemed pretty self-controlled.
Well, yeah, well, living in Atlanta, and people that I was living with, my roommates and stuff, were big military people. Stuff like that comes pretty quick. You hear about it fast. It's kind of a shock. You know, nothing like that ever in history has ever been done. It was devastating to a lot of families, to a lot of people. You know, I had an uncle that was on an airplane that was heading towards New York that day from overseas. The first picture that was put on the TV was the buildings being gone. You know, that was the first thing. You know, that's where it all started. You know, that the buildings were gone.
Well, I was in school. The first I heard about it was I was in between classes, and students were in the hallway talking about it, and it was just like they had said that 2 planes had hit the Twin Towers in New York, and I was disbelief at first, and then almost in denial, and then I went to my first class and realized when they turned on the TV that it was all true, because they had pictures and images of the planes running into the towers and everything else. So that's when I first heard about it and stuff. The first image I saw was probably from the news, and was probably people in the streets running around, trying to, run from the towers basically before they collapsed. So that was the first images that I saw. The reaction that I saw from students was more definitely, there was a mix of anger, mix of fear, mix of sadness, but definitely, it was a tough time for everyone.
I was getting ready to go and teach class, and I happened to be watching the Today Show on NBC. The first image I saw that day was the first plane going in the first tower, and I was concerned that maybe just you know, maybe a plane had gone off course, but as time progressed, I soon realized that that wasn't the case. My first reaction was, since we had family in New York, my first reaction was to call my family, ensure that everybody was alright, because some of my cousins had worked down towards the World Trade Center at that time, so I was very concerned about their well-being. And unfortunately, what had happened at the time is that we couldn't get through because most of the phone lines were very busy at that time. Being in Texas, we were far removed from New York City, but some of our students had family members in New York City, so my wife and I at the time were very concerned about our, our family, and a lot of our friends came and asked us whether or not we had family there. Well, the next day I went and I taught my research methods class, and we had a moment of prayer for the students. The students, I had a moment of prayer for those people that had died the day before.
The first image I saw was the news coverage on the TV about 9/11. It was the first image on the TV I saw was the first plane crashing into one of the Twin Towers. People around me were pretty much quiet the whole entire time. They just observed and watched while the whole thing happened. No real frantic panic or anything. And they were showing the footage of the first plane behind them flying into one of the Twin Towers. The first thing I did was call my mom just to make sure that they were watching and they knew what was going on. And, I guess just to touch base and make sure. I don't know, the first thing you think about is your family when something like that happens, so. There was a woman who came in about 2 or 3 days after 9/11, and she was coming for her sister's burial because she was on the first plane that hit the first tower, and she was like, it was weird, it was surreal for her because it didn't quite hit her yet, but she was still so upset by it. So my friend and I at the time we were working there, ordered some flowers for her and had them sent to her room, and she was floored, and she really appreciated it, and it was just something we felt we had to do, just to pay our respect to the people who went through that day.
I was in one of my bio classes as a sophomore in high school. One of the teachers came in and said we should turn on the TV, so we did, and then we were listening about how one of the planes crashed into I think it was the South Tower of the World Trade Center. I was in awe. I was like, wow, you really don't have much, you weren't thinking that much. You were just like, I can't believe this happened, I mean, after that day, it was just all news coverage. All we did was watch it.